Well, here it is, the $150 Akko Mod 007. It's a 75% full aluminum gasket mount keyboard kit with a volume wheel. This keyboard looks absolutely amazing whether it's from the front or from the sides. It just looks great. It's just an overall well-built keyboard. So the standard configuration of this keyboard has an aluminum plate that's the same color as the case. We've got 5-pin compatible north-facing hot swappable sockets with RGB LEDs, you have F keys, arrow keys, and 4 keys on the right-hand side. We've got some factory lubed plate mount stabilizers, and of course we have the volume wheel. This knob is stepped and controls your volume and LED brightness, and it's also a tactile button. Now as you can also see, it's not the most sturdy, it is quite wobbly, but it doesn't really affect the usage of this knob. And since this is a gasket mount keyboard, there is a decent amount of flex, just a tad more than its older brother the Mod 003, but nowhere near the Keychron Q1. To disassemble the keyboard, you need to unscrew these hex screws, but that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is taking out the volume knob. It took me a great deal of effort to take out the knob, only to realize that Akko had put some kind of rubber compound to make the knob stick better onto the rotary device. Very odd decision considering the knob is made out of metal, so it's not going to strip, but I guess they just wanted to make it stick better, but it kinda deters people from opening up the keyboard, which doesn't make sense. Anyways, once we take off the top frame, it's pretty much the same as the Mod 003, where you have a bunch of flex cuts on the plates and a lot of foam for the gasket mount. Now to get to the inside, we first need to disconnect the PCB from the daughter board. Then we can see the bottom frame, which also comes with some airy case foam. And now we can see the plates and the PCB, which are attached with some screws. Now taking a closer look at the PCB, you can see the stains from the factory lube on the stabilizers, and you can also see that this PCB has screw-in stabilizer holes. So if you're not a fan of plate mount stabilizers, just put in your own screw-in stabilizers into these holes and you're good to go. Surprisingly, the factory lube on these stabilizers are actually pretty good because they actually use thick lube, but they still rattle, so I would definitely recommend lubing them anyways. Oh yeah, you also get a crazy dense piece of foam in between the plates and the PCB for extra sound absorption. Now besides the aluminum plates, you're also getting an FR plate. Now the difference between the two is not just the material, but the aluminum plate also has standoffs which help it secure onto the PCB. But with the FR plates, because there are no standoffs, you will be mounting it onto the PCB like your typical gasket mount, aligning them together with the switches and the foam included. At this point, you can start reassembling the keyboard by reconnecting the PCB and the daughter board. Now you can put the switches and the keycaps on first, or do all of that after you put back on the top plate, but you can do it in whatever order you'd like because there's no clearance issues, so you can do it however you want, and that's just great. So the switches that we're using are the Mozano Eve Switches, and they are perfect for this keyboard. These are linear switches manufactured by JWK. They have a 48-gram actuation force and a 55-gram bottom-out force. It's a 5-pin switch with a less than ideal housing for surface-mounted LEDs, and these are the colors of the stem, the top housing, and the bottom housing if that's something you're interested in. But the best part about the switch is that it has an elongated stem pole. That means when you bottom out the switch, the stem doesn't go all the way down. That means you're getting clearance for cherry profile keycaps on north-facing keyboards. And if we open up the switch, you can see that the spring is super long, and the stem is factory lubed. Now this lube is pretty inconsistent, so some of the switches are going to be scratchier than others, so I definitely recommend lubing these switches yourself. So even with the factory lube, you can still hear the scratchiness of these switches when you use them. It's audible, but it's bearable. These are still technically JWK switches, right? So there's still a level of quality to them, so they're not going to be like stock Gateron Red levels of scratchiness, it's just going to be at that point where it's just okay. But even after I applied Crytox 205 Grade 0 to these switches, I could still hear a little bit of scratchiness, which means you need to break these in even after lubing them, which isn't a big deal. It'll probably take around 1 to 2 weeks because the switches are already pretty smooth. And the keycaps that we're using today are also from Mozano in collaboration with Domikey, called the Die For Me keycap set. This is the Villa base kit, and it comes with almost every single key that you need for any keyboard layout out there. There's a white version available, there are novelty keys, and there are also keycaps with hiragana sub-legends too. You can also get specialty colored F keys, arrow keys, and enter keys like these ones right here. The spacebar edge is also rounded, just like the XVX Womir, so that your thumb doesn't feel that sharp edge, and it makes it more comfortable to use. These keycaps have really good quality. They're cherry profile PBT double shot keycaps, so you're getting no oil stains, they've got a nice thickness, and they feel great to type on. Now remember, the Mod 007 is a north-facing keyboard, which means it's technically not compatible with cherry profile keycaps. But because we're using the Eve switches and its stem has an elongated pole, it means we're getting enough clearance so that we can actually use these cherry profile keycaps without running into any interference. And I think the color scheme of these keycaps match the keyboard perfectly. Just look at the keyboard, it looks amazing. Oh yeah, we also got this aviator cable from Mozano too. Sturdy double sleeved coil, nice colors, and it's the perfect fit for the Mod 007. As mentioned before, this keyboard does have RGB lighting, and the brightness is going to solely depend on the switches that you use. For example, the Eve switches that we're using kinda block majority of the light. But if you were to use a switch with SMD LED compatibility like Gateron Clear switches, then this is how much brighter it's going to be. It's actually quite a huge difference. Also, the knob switches from volume control to LED brightness by pressing it. But unfortunately, the transitions are not very smooth and you end up getting flashes every time you change the brightness. Lastly, we also have a driver to remap keys to your liking, choose from a bunch of different lighting presets and customizations, and creating macros, so this keyboard is pretty flexible in terms of meeting your needs. But that's been it. This is the Mod 007 fully built with the help of Mozano switches and accessories. Let me know what you guys think about this keyboard. Dope or nope? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.